Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all over the world. Dobson 777A here. Well, looky. Looks like we're taking a little breather here. Gold was up 0.83%. Silver was down 2.17%. Platinum was essentially even. Let me show you this. So this is what the chart looked like today. You can see gold had like a little stair step action going here, but it's all the way up to 1887 right now. Silver's dropped down to 22.58. It's got up and touched 23, I think more than once here, but it's now kind of being rejected a little bit. We'll have to see if it gets some power. But this chart here, I haven't shown this in a while either, but I want to remind you, everybody gets all excited when silver runs up, but for whatever reason, whenever it gets really close to gold or slightly surpasses it, it falls down pretty quickly. And this is what happened last year. We had this run up all the way until about the end of August, it looks like. And then we had this all the way towards the end of the year. It was a, call it like a bull flag. So a long time, August through December. And then at the very end of the year, it started taking off. Do you see this right here? This was like the last week or two of December. And then we've been basically on a tear ever since. Now, silver has been, historically, I've noticed this trend before. It will come up until we're in the very ninth inning of the bull run, and then it'll surpass gold. But you can see right here, this is our characteristic. So what happened today? It came up and it touched where gold was, and it's come back, and gold took off further. So gold is now up, I mean, it jumped a bunch today over the last couple days, actually, but this shows the silver kind of falling back, and I'm curious if it's going to kind of sag down a little bit and then retrench and get going. But you got to remember, professional traders, they look at this kind of movement and they're going to be like, give me some profits. They're going to take profits, buddy. This kind of thing here where it's just kind of inching up, this is just continuous buying. But this is going to be a profit taking, just like this one right here. This is profit taking, profit taking, profit taking. That's the way they play the game. So don't think this is manipulation. That's not what it is. This is professional traders saying, I'm going to take some money off the table and see if you get a correction, and then they'll buy back in. Okay, here's my beautiful pitchfork chart. Now this is really getting interesting. We're all the way up to the top here again. And remember, we're on the log scale now, and this is busting through. We're going into a different area now. In fact, you can see we're pulling off the bottom again. And so I don't know if we're about ready to reset on a different channel, but this is a huge leap that we've made here over this last several weeks. So keep in mind, we are really doing something on gold right now. This is out running off my chart now. So I think it's really encouraging. I'm a little concerned when I see this kind of serious movement, because you can see we kind of had this last year, and same thing, we had this rundown, the bull flag, and then it consolidated and then took back off again. So whenever I see stuff like this just concerns me that we're potentially going to have a long drawn out thing. But last year, gold ran up all the way until the end of August. So we may have another whole month here. We'll just have to see. I find it just tremendous. And of course, we're getting into price range now where people are starting to catch on that we're busting all-time highs now. So here's the chart looking at it. I mean, you can see we've gone past the 1822 or whatever it was, and now we're into the very tip of the flame of the candlestick, and you can see we've just about surpassed that now. So gold is just about to blow past its all-time high right now. We are right on the cusp of this. What is that red one there? Let's get an idea. It looks like 1900. We got to get 1900. I mean, we're $14 from 1900, folks. So our ETF representation of our physicals, gold was up 0.88%. Platinum was down 0.65, but silver was down nearly 2%. So silver is actually caught up for the year with gold, and that's kind of interesting, at least in the ETF. So we're up 24% for gold and 26% for silver, and that's probably why we're seeing a pullback. This is something I talked about a little bit earlier. Now GDX was down 1.89, GDXJ. So I noticed both the junior miners, gold and silver junior miners, were down the most. But it looks like the Explorer and large gold miners did better than the other ones. So it looks like the payroll tax cut is not going to make it, so we'll have to see if they come up with something else. But Trump was out there kind of bashing the Democrats. I kind of like this idea because the whole idea is to get as many people back to work as possible. With so many of these jobs, though, that actually have disappeared, I don't know if there is going to be a chance to where, you know, this would be a good idea. They may need to do both. They need to encourage people to go back to work, but the people's jobs that are just gone now, you know, they're probably still going to need some help. I'm kind of waffling on both sides here, so I don't know. There's probably a better way to get this done. They'll have to think about it. Now, I had been telling you my progress, and I didn't want to say anything about how things are going until I felt like I'd actually seen kind of like a stabilization, because when I first started this process, there were some really good days, and then there were some that I was down a little bit, and then there were really good days, and I started getting several good days in a row, and then, you know, maybe a lower day, and then I now have gone probably close to 2 weeks of normal. In fact, I don't know how many of you have like the Samsung phones, but there is a health app that's on there, and there are sensors on the back of the phone near the camera that you put your finger on there, and it will measure your heart rate, oxygen level, and then a stress level. And prior to me actually removing or having my gallbladder removed, I was always up here in this yellow range. And then as soon as I got my gallbladder removed, I had collapsed. But because of all the stress I had been under recently, I'd been running way up here in the middle, and now I can run this almost any time during the day, and I'll get this, it's basically zero. So I wanted to talk to you about now, with more information, how I don't think I have PTSD. PTSD would not have been resolved this quickly. I've been on some medication, but the medication is supposed to take about 6 weeks to take effect. So that is not helping yet. So what did I find out? I found out that I had been sleep deprived. Many of you know I was releasing videos late at night, and then I was staying on the computer, you know, answering questions, staying up, and I wasn't going to bed till 12 o'clock or something. And then I was getting up like 6 or 6:30 and not having restful sleep either, because a lot of times, you know, when you're doing all this editing and everything, it's like you can't go to sleep right away anyways, because it's really working your mind. It's a very detail-oriented type work. So I was running probably an average of 6 hours of sleep for a long time, which is not healthy. And in fact, I had been drinking a lot of iced tea, and then not only that, towards the evening when I was doing my videos, I was doing like a 5-hour energy drink. I'd just take a sip. I wouldn't drink the whole thing, just a sip. But I was over caffeinating, which is not good for sleeping either. I noticed that my wife, she was going to bed at 10 regularly, but because the dogs were waking up at like 4 o'clock, we don't know what it was that was causing that, but she would get up with them, take them to go out to the bathroom, and then she'd sit on the couch. But again, not getting restful sleep. She was getting like 6 hours sleep. Since that time, since she's left, I actually trained the dogs, and the last couple mornings, they're actually getting up at 6:30. It's fantastic. And so I'll actually, you know, feed them, take them out, and then I'll lay back in bed and I'll do some research and stuff. Hold on a second. So anyways, I wanted to explain the methodology of what I actually did to remove my stress. So some of the things I talked about was eliminating caffeine, I changed my sleeping habits back to normal. Um, I disconnected from the world like 90%. As you've noticed, I haven't done nearly the amount of videos. I haven't been listening to the radio, to the TV, doing very little internet. In fact, what I have done is put Christian music in the background. And I have a lot of this praise worship, a lot of things like you'd see in a modern church. I have that kind of music that I can play at a low level in the background, and it gives a nice calm thing. And what I would do is during the day, I would be reading these inspirational books. And I would also, occasionally something would come into my mind, while I was, and I forgot to say I was fasting also, praying and fasting. Um, God would talk to you. He'd put something on your mind, and I'd go sit down and say, okay, I'm going to go spend an hour on the computer, and I'd kind of write stuff down. And there's a video in here where it talks about Jordan Peterson and how to free your soul from the past. And he talks about this is a huge way to organize your mind, because you're fighting with yourself on past issues. There's something that's causing you where you are being stressed. And by working through this, remember, you have all the data in you. These psychiatrists and everything, they don't have the data. They have to try to pull it out of you. Well, you work on it. You figure it out. So this is kind of my approach that I always used at work, is I would try to gather data. And the only way you can do it is sit there and work through it. But once you start identifying the issues and you can start put together a plan, that's what we would do. We would collect data at work, and then we would try to validate it, see what makes sense. I'd do more research, like I watched a lot of Jordan Peterson. I'd look at a lot of psychology type channels and try to understand the symptoms that I was having to see, what could be the cause. And so initially with the flashbacks and things like that I was having, it looked like PTSD, but it's just when you are sleep deprived, it's like your brain is not under control anymore. It's not under your control. You've lost the ability, and that's why I was having a lot of cursing, because again, my normal controls were not there. The gates were opened and things were happening. So by actually working through and you can do this a number of different ways, but I approached it from like a Christian perspective, and I said, my soul is tormented. I need to, work through it, so I'm going to do things in a Christian way. And it allowed me have a little better approach, because when I was writing things down, I realized, okay, I'd fallen away from God. I wasn't where I needed to be. So, doing a hardcore type fasting thing, it eliminated a lot of the meal type problems that can cause you indigestion and everything else too. So I've lost a lot of weight. I feel way better. You get all your energy back when you do stuff like this, because you're carrying a bunch of stuff around in here. I mean, I've lost over 30 pounds. I'm under 200 pounds now and still dropping. I've slowed it down, but some of the things that I would do is I read several books. I think I told you about this Purpose Driven Life, which is talking about the key characteristics Christians should emulate. And then I read In His Steps and What Would Jesus Do, which is, putting Christ into action. And now I'm about a third of the way reading the Bible through. And I've actually only got a week left of this 21-day fasting that I'm doing. My stomach's growling right here while I'm sitting here. But, I was playing these CDs, and these CDs were anywhere from, say, 45 minutes to 75 minutes. And whenever a CD ended, I stopped and I prayed. And I would pray about everything. I'd pray about my relationships with my children, my grandchildren, with my wife. I'd pray for all my extended family members, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers. I don't have any brothers, but this is for you to consider. Cousins, all that kind of stuff. The other thing is, because I was sleep deprived, because I was doing a lot of reading and everything, occasionally I would just be exhausted and I'd say, okay, I'm just going to take a nap. And I took it in the chair that I was doing all of my studying, right where the music was playing and everything. And so, because even though I knew I was exhausted, I was still having trouble sleep. I'd wake up like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'd go to bed at 10 and I'd only get like 4 hours sleep, and it'd take a while before I'd get back to sleep. these are all things like they talk about, like the witching hour and stuff, but it's like there were things that would come on my mind, and I had a notepad by the bed, and I'd sit down and write it all down. And then I'd try to get it off my mind so that I could go back to sleep. So during when it gets about 8 or 9 o'clock, I stopped. I would stop doing my reading, I would stop doing my praying, and I would go to bed, and I would start getting myself into position for sleep. I mean, I think the earliest I went to bed was about 8:30, and about 9:30 I would get up, take the dogs out to go to the bathroom so that they wouldn't wake up so early, and then I would just get back in bed, and by 10 o'clock, lights out, and I would try to sleep. So I talked about, if I woke up in the middle of the night, I'd start praying again, and I eliminated all the caffeine products. When I started fasting, I did not know everything about fasting. There's actually multiple ways to fast, and I found a video, I'll try to put it in the description or in the comments section, that talked about the different ways. And what I had done was just really limited how much I ate, and I focused on vegetables, but I was actually, because I was getting so cold because my body was burning fat, I ended up having to make like a small plate of nachos with some cheese and jalapenos and stuff on it, because the cheese has the oils in it that you need to be able to stoke your furnace to get your temperature back up. But later I learned, for the type of fasting I was trying to do was primarily vegetables. So but I lost so much weight in a couple weeks, I ended up having to introduce like a casserole once or twice during the week, where I would make like a salmon, egg, hash brown type thing, and I would take like a square and I'd have that for one meal. And that would slow down my weight loss, because I'm telling you, it was incredible. Some days I lost like 2 pounds. And the other day I got up out of my chair and I got super dizzy, so I realized that I needed to get a little more sustenance, because it could be dangerous. And you got to make sure you drink lots of water. You don't drink any caffeinated beverages, anything like that, just lots of water. And because you're flushing toxins out of your body, when your body's breaking down all the fat and everything in there, residual food particles, whatever, you've got to have water to flush this stuff out. Otherwise, you could probably damage your liver and stuff, so kidneys. All right, so anyways, I wanted you to be aware of, what this was and how I did it, because the results are showing where I'm at, and I'm feeling a lot better. There's still a lot of things that I would argue that I'll give myself like a 75%. It took a long time to get this screwed up. And so now what I have to do is kind of stay focused, keep the stress down. If something does come up, you don't have to handle it right away. Just kind of relax. So I'm trying to say I'm retired now. That's the secret, right? Not everybody's going to have this opportunity like I do, but I am going to rewire my brain that I'm retired. Everything doesn't have to be done right this second. So one of the problems I had with the job that I worked in, we were taught to do continuous improvement, which means that if you came out with a perfect process that worked that year and it was very effective, the next year they considered it obsolete and you had to improve on it. You always had to do it faster, cheaper, better, right? So we were challenged every year to get better and better and better. Well, the problem is I brought that into the house. And that is not good, because all the things that I was doing with the animals and everything, I would just say, okay, I saw what we did here. I think we can kind of like expand this and get even more rabbits and make it easier to clean and all this. And the same with raising chickens, turkeys, all that. It was ridiculous. It's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary to do that same type of thing when you're not in a production environment. I'm not trying to grow things and sell things for other people where I'm trying to increase profitability all the time. So this was like a catastrophic defect that I brought into the house, and it was like a taskmaster for myself and my wife of constantly doing more things that really were not necessary. So I fault myself for that, but at the same time, it's like it's been ingrained in you for 35 years or more that I was working. And I now realize, duh, got to stop. So retired, I'm retired. That's what I have to do. And I have to disconnect occasionally because the problem is I like to learn a lot. This whole thing about doing the YouTube stuff has been a tremendous learning thing, but it takes so much time. And I'm constantly, researching and putting these things together, and it just absorbs too much time. So that's why, maybe 3 times a week is all that's required. I cannot commit any more than that. And I'm doing it much earlier in the evening now instead of like at the last part. I've been out working in the garden in the mornings now. I picked all kinds of tomatoes. I've got a whole bunch of okra I got to pick tomorrow. I've been kind of weeding the garden, kind of trimming all the tomato plants back. There's a lot to do. So anyways, I just wanted to give you that report. Things are really looking up. I'm pleased at how well this has worked out, and I just got to keep working on it. Now, my son is coming in tomorrow. I'm ecstatic about this, his whole family. And so it's going to be great having the grandkids here, and we'll just keep working on it. I hope my wife listens because I think you can do the same thing here, and it will help. All right, I love everybody. Until next time. I hope everybody's treating you well. I hope you're doing well. Do the best you can. God bless.